Okay, I think we're recording now. So we're going to get started. We're reading I Want a Wife today. And right off the bat, the title seems a little bit ironic, or it seems direct, but I think it's a little bit ironic. This because the person writing it is a woman, right? So there's something about this woman choosing a title that says I want a wife that gives you the indication that a wife is not only a beneficial thing, but it's so beneficial that another woman would recognize it as a necessity. So this is not the kind of text that has any like queer undertones, right? The title is meant to signal some sort of satire. And that's something we're going to talk about throughout the entirety of the reading. So this text, I Want a Wife, appears in a 1971 feminist magazine. So I want you to start wrapping your head around what she might be implying with a title like I Want a Wife. All right, okay, we're going to get started. I belong to that classification of people known as wives. I am a wife, and not altogether incidentally, I am a mother. Start thinking about what an opening that is. Why is it interesting? Why say a classification of people called wives? As if it's less human and more categorical, or maybe we should think of it as more scientific, right? Like a wife serves a function, right? You can tell that she capitalizes a wife, right? And then she adds this section, which I think it's also part of the text, the idea of being a mother, though I think that's secondary in commentary to the idea of being a wife in the text, right? So just start thinking about words like classification and why it might be a very interesting choice in this context. So not too long ago, okay, so now we're launching into a kind of anecdotes, right? Or some sort of personal story. Here we go. Not too long ago, a male friend of mine appeared on the scene. That's an interesting phrase, appeared on the scene, fresh from a recent divorce. He had one child, who is, of course, with his ex wife. I want you to think about this phrase right here. He is looking for another wife. As I thought about him while I was ironing one evening, it suddenly occurred to me that I too would like to have a wife. Why do I want a wife? So, this question is supposed to signal the need for a response. So, the entirety of the text is answering the question, why do I, Judy, why do I want a wife? Right? And again, this isn't really about finding a spouse or finding, it's about explaining the role of the wife in the household and how indispensable it is. So I see a few comments in the chat. What I'd like for you guys to do is I'd like you to write your comments as we go. I want you to think out loud what your responses are to the text. Ask questions if there are things that you don't fully understand that you want me to explain. So let's do that. All right. So this is really an interesting anecdote. First is riddled with sarcasm, right? The tone is sarcastic. You can clearly tell when he says that her friend appeared on the scene fresh from a recent divorce, right? He has a child, but of course he's with the mom or the ex-wife. Actually, she doesn't say mom. She stays to the main title that she wants to focus on, which is wife, or in this case, ex-wife, right? And he's looking for another one. And then here, this is to me, it's really, really ironic. One evening, while she's working, while she is performing the duties that are expected of a wife, while she's ironing, she says, "You know what? I'd like to have a wife too. That sounds pretty nice." Right? So I just want to point that out that right from the beginning, there is a tone of sarcasm, but also criticism. That's really what it's there to do. People are not just sarcastic for any reason, and it's not really only meant to humor. In this case, it's meant to criticize, right? Okay, so this is why she would like a wife. Here we go. I would like to go back to school so that I can become economically independent, support myself, and if need be, support those dependent upon me. Who is the I in this case? Male or female? Man or woman? What do you think? Come on, come on. Who is she embodying
A
for the
man?
rest of the text saying I want? Sorry, somebody answered and I cut you off. What did you say?
A man?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So she's gonna be embodying this idea of if I were a man. Oh, is that a Beyonce song? I think it is. If I were a man, right? Oh wait, if I were a boy. That's how the song goes. I know the rest of you are gonna Google it later and listen to it. I get it. I get it. I know you guys moved on from Beyonce and now you're on Taylor Swift. I get it. But Beyonce was real. Beyonce was the one. Okay. Taylor's like, eh. So anyway, and the same idea, actually, I had never made that connection until now, that if I were a boy, emulates the same style that this essay is written on. I just made that connection right now talking to you. Um, so she's emulating this idea that if she were a man, right, that'd be nice to have a wife. Why? Because she would like to go back to school and study and become economically independent, right? I want a wife who will work for me, who will work and send me to school. And while I'm going to school, I want a wife to take care of my children. And I want a wife to keep track of the children's doctors and dentist appointments and to keep track of mine too. I want a wife to make sure my children eat properly and are kept clean. I want a wife who will wash the children's clothes and keep them mended. I want a wife who is a good nurturant, attendant to my children, who arranges for their schooling to make sure that they have an adequate social life with their peers, takes them to the park, to the zoo, etc. I want a wife who will take care of the children when they are sick, a wife who arranges to be around when the children need special care, because, of course, I cannot miss class, right, at school. My wife must arrange to lose time at work and not lose the job. It may mean a small cut in my wife's income from time to time, but I guess I can tolerate that. Needless to say, my wife will arrange and pay for childcare while my wife is working. Okay, can I get your reactions for a second? I'm opening up all the tiles so I can see you. Can I get your reactions right now? What do you think is happening here? Anybody? Come on, come on.
Well, like I'm noticing, like the relationship seems like it's mostly for the man, like of what his wife can do for him.
Right, to meet
Kind
his
of
needs.
like very self-focused a little
Yeah,
bit.
okay. Good. Do you think anybody actually says these things? I mean, I'm sure somebody does, but do you think generally people say these things to their spouses?
No, they just expect it.
Right. So I don't know who said it. I didn't see the title come up because I was looking at the chat. Who said it? I want to hear that voice again.
Me.
Okay, me. That was good. Good job, me. Now, I agree. I think that she is voicing what male society in the 1970s expected. Can we extrapolate and say that it still happens today? Sure, maybe to a certain extent, right? But I think we've changed in many ways, and I think we're a lot better than we used to be, right, Tyler? Right, exactly. Now, I I think that she is voicing what the male society in the 1970s expected of women, but never fully articulated. They didn't really say these things, but they definitely believe them, right? So I'd like to point out some choices that she makes throughout the text. After all, that's what the whole class is about. Reading like a writer. What are the choices? I like to think of the possessive of my children over and over again, right? We can call this an anaphora because it's a repetition for sure. But really, what I want to think about is that these are meant to be possessive, like they are my children, and you are meant to take care of them. He never says our children, right? He never invites her into that role. She actually doesn't quite step out of the wife role into the mother role. She seems to remain in the wife role, and that seems to be the focus of the text. There are a lot of moments that are clearly very sardonic in tone, right? Keep track of mine too. Or I guess I could, where is it? I guess I can tolerate that, right? Like these things are clearly meant to be more sarcastic in their tone. But the implication of this is that a wife seems to serve a role, which is why she's a part of that classification of people. She is a class of people. She's a category of people. She serves a function. And that's what she's trying to say. She, the writer here, who is emulating the male voice of the 1970s. All right, let's keep going. I want a wife. Again, the chat is open. Post your questions, comments, reactions, and then we'll talk. Okay. I want a wife who will take care of my physical needs. I want a wife who will keep my house clean. Look at the possessive continuing from my children to my house, to my clothes, to my personal things. It seems like the wife is subservient, sure, but also there seems to be a division of ownership. There are things he has, and then there are things that she gets to be a part of, right? So consider that as we continue. Also, consider the idea of wanting a wife and more like needing a wife. I think that seems to be the better choice of words. I mean, I want a wife who will keep my house clean, a wife who will pick up after my children. Again, a wife who will pick up after me. I want a wife who will keep my clothes clean, ironed, mended, replaced when need be, and who will see to it that my personal things are kept in their proper place so that I can find what I need the minute I need it. Right? This one definitely, you can feel the tone here a little bit more. I want a wife who cooks the meals, a wife who is a good cook, mind you, not just one who cooks. She's got to be a good cook. I want a wife who will plan the menus, do the necessary grocery shopping, prepare the meals, serve them pleasantly, and then do the cleaning while I do my studying. You know, we've been looking at this in one particular way so far, that the writer, Judy Brady, is emulating the male expectations of the 1970s culture, and she's voicing them, though they are often unarticulated, sure. But you know what she's also doing? She's also listing and outlining all the many things wives do in the household. Do you notice that? Well, emulating the male voice that says, I want a wife, she is also outlining in a very detailed way the many things that wives do that maybe go unnoticed. Does that make sense? By illustrating all the things that the guy wants out of a wife, she is also demonstrating all the many things that wives do. Okay. All right, let's keep going. I want a wife who will care for me when I am sick and sympathize with my pain and loss of time from school. I want a wife to go along when our family takes a vacation so that someone can continue to care for me and my children when I need rest and change of scene. I'm sorry. This section is just yeah, it's just hilarious. Um so I can you imagine how the reception, right? Because we're looking at the text in many angles. So we're looking at the speaker, and we know that she is a feminist and a woman in the 1970s, and she is expressing a lot of frustration, sure. But now we're going to look at audience. We don't just look at speaker. We're got to look at, and we saw the situation already. We got to look at the audience. What do you think the audience is? How do you think the audience is receiving this? First of all, who signs up for a feminist magazine in the 1970s? Women? Did you say women, Rebecca? You're right. Women. Women sign up for a feminist magazine in the 1970s. Maybe some guys, but mostly women. How do you think this is targeting her intended audience? What do you think these women are like? Are they married in your mind? Do they have children in your mind? If you say
More than
no,
likely.
say it again.
More than likely.
More than likely, right? Like these are women who have a proto-feminist quality to them, but feminism as we know it hasn't quite hasn't dug its heels yet. That's a strange metaphor. But the kind of feminism we understand today is not what it was in the 1970s. So the women reading this would have been also part of the cultural expectation. They would have been performing those cultural expectations. That's the kind of audience that she is addressing almost. So that's the kind of audience that now feels represented, that feels heard, perhaps, right? Think about it like that. All right, let's keep going. I want a wife who will not bother me with rambling complaints about a wife's duties. Uh, but I want a wife who would listen to me when I feel the need to explain a rather difficult point I've come across in the course of my studies. And I want a wife who will type my papers for me when I have written them. Have you noticed that the entire conversation has been about when she's emulating the male voice? The guy is in school. The guy's not at work. Have you noticed that? Why why that choice? Okay, so if you're gonna pretend that you're a guy saying I want a wife who will do X, Y, or Z for me, why aren't you working? How come you're going to school? Is she trying to illustrate that women didn't have that option as easily as men did because they didn't have the support needed? Could this be part of larger commentary on education for women? How women could not. We often talk about levels of education and how high men go as opposed to women. Maybe not as much now as it used to be, but part of that is because women didn't have the access to that level of education, or maybe not say that. They didn't have the support needed to go to school. I mean, all of you are in school right now, and you would agree somebody supports you, right? I'm pretty sure somebody's making you a meal once or twice a week. Somebody's taking care of you in some way. And the further you go into schooling, the more you're going to need somebody there by your side to help you, right? You guys are nodding. And you're thanking your parents? Yeah, yeah. Okay, good. So in many ways, she the writer is voicing that disparity of education, that women don't have the access to education needed, which is why the guy gets to go to school as long as he has a woman at home to help him. Sorry, a wife at home, not a woman, wife. So I want a wife who will type my papers, right? I want a wife who will take care of the details of my social life. Uh, the possessive continues. My social life, my children early on, my clothes, my things, my friends, my guests, my sexual needs, right? All of the things that he wants. And I just want to point out that everything is called I want, but it really feels like I need someone to take care of me, right? Um, I would argue that I want a wife sounds like I want a mom, but that's besides the point, and I leave that to psychologists to figure out. I want a wife who'll take care of the details of my social life when a wife and I are invited out by my friends. I want a wife who will take care of the babysitting arrangements when I meet people at school that I like and I want to entertain. I want a wife who will have the house clean, will prepare a special meal, serve it to my friends. Me and my friends will not interrupt when I talk about things that interest me and my friends. I want a wife who will arrange that the children are fed and are ready for bed before my guests arrive so that children do not bother us. I want a wife who will take care of the needs of my guests so that they feel comfortable, who makes sure that they have an ashtray. These are very specific examples. But if you notice the wine, the hors d'oeuvres, the glasses, replenish the coffee, she's walking us to this idea of the many ways in which women serve the household. So far, I've counted the following ways. They seem to be the financial head of the household. They seem to be in her retelling, right? They seem to be the I guess the manager of the everyday things. They seem to be the cooks, the cleans. They seem to embody many functions in the household, right? Like if the household was a company, um, the wife seems to be playing the role of CEO and truck driver and everything in between. So I think that's part of the rhetoric of the text as well, to illustrate the many things that wives do and perhaps even go unnoticed. So as a follow-up to this text, I'm going to have you read something else, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes. I want a wife who knows that I sometimes need a night out by myself. I want a wife who is sensitive to my sexual needs. A wife who makes love passionately and eagerly when I feel like it. A wife who will make sure that I am satisfied. And of course, I want a wife who will not demand sexual attention when I'm not in the mood for it. I want a wife who assumes complete responsibility for birth control because I do not want more children. This one is really interesting, right? This is a conversation that's been happening for a long time. It's happening even today because to this day, women are in charge of contraceptives in all their relationships. I mean, I'm sure condoms exist, but for the most part, women are in charge of contraceptives, right? So that's a conversation worth having, even at a national level, because I don't see a whole lot of contraceptives being made for men, right? So think about that. This is a satirical text, and it feels petty at times when she's talking about wouldn't it be nice to have a wife who will take care of you. But she the writer is also making political commentary, hiding as social commentary. I hope you see that. There's a lot of political conversations happening, right? Disparities of education, disparities of contraceptives and the like. There are political commentaries happening here. They're not only social, right? So I want to point that out because her article feels like a Trojan horse, right? At first, it feels like a satire about wouldn't it be nice to have a supportive spouse at home who takes care of all your needs? But really, the second conversation we're having is about the role of women in society. And now I use women because I don't just mean wives, I mean women in American society, right? So she ends very exasperated, right? Saying, "My God, who would have want a wife?" Well, those kind of things. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing, and then I'm gonna stop the video if I can find it. Pause recording. I found it.